Hi, I'm Richard from UK Business Forums, and today I'm here with Ann Brebner from Workplace Cleaning Solutions. Hello, Ann.
Hi, Richard. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming along and telling us your story. So, before I start, I'm picking up a bit of a twang in your accent. So you're not from round these parts, are you?
You're right there. There is a little bit of a twang, and it's a Yorkshire twang.
God's country.
And I can't believe it. I don't think I sound that Yorkshire anymore, but apparently I do.
God's country. But
God's country.
So you, even though we're in Northampton here, and you run a local business in this area, you grew up in Yorkshire.
I did, yeah.
Starting at that point, tell us a bit about sort of growing up, your sort of younger years and perhaps your first job.
Right, okay. So yes, I am from Yorkshire. I'm from Hatfield, which is very close to Doncaster in South Yorkshire. Great place, lovely people, salt of the earth. And for me, I was born into a very small community in a place called Hatfield in Doncaster. And we lived in a very small cul-de-sac and everybody knew each other. Everybody was your auntie and your uncle, and it was just really familiar, and everybody played outside together. And that was my first networking, really, I suppose, in life. And my dad worked for ICI Fibres in Doncaster, and my mum worked for the Citizens Advice Bureau. Eventually, she was a stay-at-home mum for many of the years, but as we got a bit older, she went out to work. And my dad was very much, bless him, my dad is no longer with us, but my dad was very much of, you always got to go to work, you never have a day sick, ever, and he never did in his whole career. And my mum was very much the same. So it was always about that good, strong work ethic and, treating people with dignity and integrity and supporting people. So that was what I grew up with, and I had a great friendship circle. And my first job was on a milk float.
I read that and I had to chuckle to myself because that was one of my first jobs. Yeah. Saturday morning, getting up while it was still dark on the milk float. I don't know about yourself, but I didn't earn much money from it.
No.
I ended up buying, I'd get paid and I'd give him the money pretty much straight back for a big box of broken biscuits. And that's what I went home with every Saturday.
Pretty much the same, but my motivation is a bit gross actually, because I used to love sour milk. So for me, I'd get on that milk float at 5 o'clock in the morning. Obviously there was a thrill of hanging off the back, and there was no health and safety back then. So, hanging off the back, running after the milk cart and then jumping back on, that was the exciting part. But the sour milk, and I say that because I hate milk now, was the actual motivation for doing it. Yeah, it's not good, is it? It's not good. It's not good, but maybe my gut health's really good because of it.
Oh dear. The other thing that I picked up about though, with particularly around your mum, is she did a lot of charity supported charity work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was just amazing. And my mum's no longer with me anymore either. So both my parents have gone now, but their legacy continues because I love charity work. I have big involvement with the local charities in Northampton, and my mum specifically used to support the women's refuges in Doncaster. So we'd regularly hop along to the women's refuge and take everybody out to the cinema for the day, and my mum buy everybody sweets. And it was just, at the time I didn't really understand what that was all about because I was probably about 7 or 8, but I just knew she was going into somewhere very sad, and we'd take these lovely people along to the cinema and they'd come out happy, and that was my memory. But later, obviously, as I got older, I understood what it was all about, but at the time I didn't know what a women's refuge was. So I love getting involved with local charities, and just done some recent charity work in Northamptonshire, raising funds for the Lewis Foundation and Eve and Northampton Rape Crisis. So that's a big part of what I do.
Yeah, and you see that from some of the social media that you do as well. Yeah. So would you say, well, you just alluded to that there, that your sort of mum inspired you in
Absolutely,
that, both your parents in the work ethic, but then also with the giving back as well.
Yeah.
So as you continued sort of growing, you made quite a move.
I I did make quite a move. My mum always used to say to me, spread your wings, Aran. That's sort of her exact words. And she was right, because I loved living in Hatfield. It was a great community, but there was more to life than Hatfield itself. And I thought, right, what am I going to do? And I was either going to be a psychiatric nurse or a police officer, because I failed my A-levels, so I didn't get any further with that. And I applied for the Metropolitan Police. And I was really honest in my application, because they said, have you got any medical conditions? And I laugh now. And I said, I've got a verruca. So, and they delayed me getting into the police for a year until I'd got rid of this verruca. I mean, there's been honest and there's been honest. I don't know how it affected me doing my job as a police officer, but anyway.
Or maybe it made it much difficult running after the criminals.
True, but the verruca went, and I went to the police. I was 19 years old, and oh my word, what a change from little old quiet Hatfield. It was amazing.
And from what I see, the sort of areas within the Met Police that you actually were involved in are quite deep. Murder, burglary, robbery, prostitution. These are quite. Were they? I don't know how it works with the Met, but are they sort of areas you specialise in? You
do, but my first station was King's Cross Police Station. So from day one of being on the beat, even though I wasn't specialised in the drugs, I was meeting drug abuse, prostitution, and the similar sort of things on a daily basis. It was the best place to work as a police officer, because in 1 square mile, everything was happening, literally everything. I just couldn't believe it. I'd never come across drugs before. And to see the sadness of it all as well was a real eye-opener for me. But such a great learning ground. Such a great learning ground.
I was going to say, it must be such a huge learning experience.
Amazing.
For life and in business. What sort of skills would you say that kind of career sort of gives you that you use it today?
That's a really good question, because, when you're in the police, you just do what you do. And you generally join the police because you want to help people, you want to make a difference. And those transferable skills are vast. It's communication, it's listening to people, it's supporting, it's investigating, it's being compassionate, it's being, assertive at times, and also understanding that everybody's different and we've all got different backgrounds. And that was a great skill that you honed over the years. And I've worked with some amazing coppers over my time, and I've got much admiration for them. And also the support they gave me in my journey as a police officer.
I don't know whether you can share any sort of anecdotal stories of some of the experiences you come. I'm sure this is the sort of thing you'll get asked at any sort of a dinner party or.
So many. I mean, me and my friend Sue, who was in the police with me, who was basically my mentor in the police. She was actually from Manchester, but to me, she sounded like a Cockney. She'd only been in the police 2 years longer than me. And we used to often go out on the beat together. And this one time we were on night duty in the Little Panda, and it was coming to the end of the shift. It normally finished at 6 a.m. And me and Sue, there was this suspicious vehicle, and we thought, okay. And I said, come on, Sue, let's pull this car over, because there was a vehicle defect on the vehicles. The lights weren't working. It just wasn't right at that time in the morning. It's that sixth sense. You do get that sense for people. Something's not quite right. And we pulled this car over, and there's 3 guys in it. And basically, Sue was doing a check, and it was stolen. Everybody in the car was wanted. And Sue was like this to me in the background, and it's like, just keep them talking, because we need to get the troops in, which is the rest of the team, to support us, because if you didn't handle that situation quite right, 1, they could be legging it, you could be chasing them down the street. 2, there could be a punch up. So again, it was those interpersonal skills. You've just got to manage it until everybody got there. And it was calm. And as much as I met, obviously I've arrested so many people in my time. Most of the time, if you treat people the same respect that you want to be treated with, it can go okay unless there's drugs and alcohol involved, and then it's a whole different world. You never know what's going to happen.
I mean, that does make sense when you're talking about sort of respecting or sort of just treating people. It's hard to imagine when you're thinking about criminality or criminals and you're sort of treating them respectfully when you're being pulled over, because you're from the outside you'd imagine they'll just be like straight up, sort of like in defensive mode or sort of just like looking for the run. But it's interesting to hear you say no matter what area you're in, the respect element goes a long way to diffusing a situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Any others?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's plenty, but some I can't talk about on film, obviously. I mean, you know, with anything that you turned up to as a police officer, especially on the beat in uniform, you just never knew what you were turning up to. And one time when I was still a probationer, we got a call. It was a daytime call. So generally in the evening, you can generally think it might be alcohol fueled, you know, pub turning out, etc. But this wasn't. It was the middle of the day. It's probably about 1 o'clock. So I was in the area car, which is the fast car, which was always great and always really exciting. And we whizzed off to this call. And basically we got there and there was this little old middle-aged lady, but a little old lady, and all was all right. And the next thing, she pulled a knife out. So, and she just went crazy, and it was from nowhere. So, you know, that situation turned into a call, which we weren't sure what it was about, to then a knife coming out and myself and my colleagues rolling around on the floor with this lady. Anyway, we detained her. And everybody was okay and nobody was harmed, but it was just always expect the unexpected. And I got commendation for that incident. I think my sergeant was just particularly being supportive of me because I was a probationer. And next thing I was on the Islington Gazette and I had to pose on top of a police collar like that. It said, "Ann the Brave." And my dad bought loads of copies, and I was actually mortified because I was just doing my job. You know, it's just my job. It didn't need to be highlighted in the media. It wasn't just me; it was my colleagues as well. But yeah, it was fun times, Richard. Fun times, but great times. And you know, if my career hadn't taken the path it had, I'd have just stayed in the police force until I retired. I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
As I'm listening to these two stories. Coming from a business perspective, this is a business podcast with, you know, UK business, about business, and I am just seeing so many points there where you can turn around and dealing with conflicts within business. So I can see how you say you would have stayed within that if you hadn't taken a different path, but they are such transferable skills. Right in at the deep end, if I dare say. Absolutely, for there. Yeah. But one of the things, even whilst you're working within the police force, you started a couple of what the term today would use side hustles. Tell us about some of those.
Well, the first one was very, very low key, but I always had a passion for business. And we always used to chat at home, me, my dad and my brother and my mum, about opening a business, which was Yorkshire puddings with different fillings, and we talked about it for years. There was always like these conversations going on, and I still think it's a winner. I'll do it one day. But when I was in the police, I decided to start making dry flower arrangements. Now, I'm not that creative, and they didn't look that good, but I actually used to sell loads of them at the car boot sale. And I like that whole transaction. I like to create something that somebody would buy and they would walk away happy. And that's where I dipped my toes, but it didn't last for long. So my garage was my studio. And my friend who I lived with at the time will probably laugh at me saying it was a studio because it wasn't quite that. But, you know, it was that business interaction and just dipping my toe in something different. And then went on to buy some properties and develop those. My brother's a property developer in Northampton, and that's what brought me here eventually. The housing market was so much different to London, where I was living at the time. So that sort of opened the door in terms of that side of it. But again, it was because I had to really, because my now husband at the time needed to get back onto the property market. So, you know, when you're looking at things, you think, what are we going to do? So we researched and we thought, okay, let's get a property, let's do it up and let's sell it on. And that started off an activity that we did quite regularly for years while we were in the police force.
So if we piece those bits together, so about this sort of time you met your now husband, you just mentioned he needed to get onto the property ladder.
Yes.
And that tied in with the time where you were starting to, dare I say, sort of dabble in business.
Yes.
And you, did I, interpret it correct, sort of through necessity? Is it fair to me to say necessity drove you towards it, but you found you enjoyed it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's just something different because the path my parents carved out for me, especially my dad, was school, A-levels, university. I didn't pass the A-levels. I wasn't mature enough to understand it in my mind. Later, education and learning came to me and I grasped it and I love it. I love personal development, but at the time it wasn't the right time. And I think once I got away from home, and my mum and dad weren't controlling, they were just amazing, I was able to speak with other people around me. And I think it's really important the people you surround yourself by, because they can influence you as well. So I had a friend who was into property development and I was listening to those stories and I was curious. And I think, curiosity is really important because it can lead to all sorts of things, opportunities, experiences, etc. And it did.
Following on from that, then a little while, you had the side hustles, you was full-time within the police force, thoroughly enjoying it. You then had twins in 2003.
I did. So it was IVF. So that was all going on while I was in the police, and I'd got a new role on the burglary squad at Tottenham Police Station. So that was happening, and the IVF is quite intense because you've got to turn up for injections at a certain time. Anyway, it worked the second time round, and we were lucky enough to have twins, and my dad was pleased because he said 2 for the price of 1 because I had to pay for it, good old northern bloke. And Matthew and James were born in 2003, and I worked right up to going on maternity leave. I was really proud of that. They literally had to carry me into work in a wheelbarrow because I was that big, and I took a career break. And then I realised I'd never looked at childcare costs at all. And as you can imagine, with 2, it was huge. So I did go back to work after having the boys. But literally, I was working 2 days a week, and I was travelling from Northampton to London. And they were really long days, so it's 12, 14 hours. And my childcare was £800 a month, and all I was earning was £800. Wow. So there was no money. But I loved the job so much, I just didn't want to leave it.
But you started a couple of things on the side there just to try and make up the money.
Yeah, and it was. And my husband is a police officer. He trained to actually be a plumber because we were worried about the money and we weren't sure how it was all going to work out, because when you do anything, you've got to invest in it to start off with. You don't normally get the fruit straight away. So, it was a tricky time, but enjoyable at the same time.
Sort of around about this sort of time, with sort of leading up to the point where you started commercial cleaning, within about 2005 sort of time. So this is still during that period, is it, where you're working part-time for the police still, you're doing some domestic cleaning on the side and housekeeping, all that on the side, and then you're starting what will come to becomes your core business today. But that's a lot of plates to spin, just to cover the household bills. How was that time?
Gosh, stressful. Yeah, it was tiring, but even I wouldn't have it any different way, because I think, coming from the police and dealing with the sort of the workload, because, you know, some days you could turn up to work and you might not go home for 2 days. It was literally like that. You'd sleep on the station floor, you would get the job done. So for me,
Sorry, is that still what, like when you're gone back part-time?
yeah, so I've no, not when I've gone back part-time, because that's fraud squad by this point. So this is the whole different way of being as a police officer. So when I went back to the police after maternity leave, that was the fraud squad, and that was a whole change for me, and it wasn't the job I wanted to do. Yeah, but when you were in the police before, you could have turned up 6 o'clock that morning and not gone home for 2 days because you were on a job or, you know, a raid or something like that. So it was tough having my boys, beautiful boys, and managing everything and the business and working in the police as well. But I enjoy working and I love the challenge of it. What I didn't get right was the work-life balance, and I couldn't do it now. I just couldn't do it now. I wouldn't have the energy. And I think, looking back, I was exhausted, but I just kept going because I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. And for me, I think it, you know, I'm actually now, it's just the pieces are falling into place really, because my mum and dad worked hard and their work ethic was really important, and my work ethic and my husband's work ethic is really important to my boys as well. They're 19 now, and you know, the things they're doing and saying are very much in line with our values and how we see work, but we also see a work-life balance as well, which I've matured into over the years. Because before it was just like all about working, work.
Yeah, but during that, if you paint a picture about that time, then so you're getting a business off the ground, you're working part time for the police, you're a relatively new parent, your husband's retraining because money is tight, you're doing other part-time or work with, say, the domestic cleaning, housekeeping. It is very much work, but there did become a point where you can only burn the candle at both ends for so long, and you hit a point where you had to stop. What was that time like?
That time was me saying, actually, you can't do everything, and you can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. I think that's what the saying goes by. And I knew I needed more support with the boys, and I knew that I couldn't continue working in the police as well, and that something had to give. So going back to the police, that was the love of the job. It was not a financial thing, because I was getting no money at the end of it, and I didn't want to leave. I thought that I would have stayed in the police till I was 50, till the age you can retire, but that wasn't the case because of the children. I just couldn't do it. So I took a 5-year career break, but I'd already started the business in the background when my boys were 6 months old.
So this, when you sort of talking about the career break, is this the career break in the police, or career break across the board with your own business as well?
Just in the police. Yeah, 5-year career break in the police.
And that gave you the capacity not only for work-life balance that you mentioned, but also focus in the business.
Yeah, the work-life balance still wasn't. It was okay. If I compare it to where I am now, I mean, you know, it's a whole journey. It's about maturing in business. But back then, that just gave me the breathing space, because going to London for 2 days a week and spending the whole day, that's 2 days out of your week, and then you've got children, household, family, etc. To fit in, plus business as well. So by giving myself that space, I was home-based with my business, which meant that, okay, I did share the meeting table / dining table with my 2 twin boys and lots of food being thrown about, but it gave me time to focus on the business and the business development. So yes, that was a really crucial time in my career, in my business journey.
It makes sense as well, just if purely financial business decision. If you're going out of, let's say, your business, your home, for 2 days a week for £800, but that's costing you £800 to do that, it's a hiding to nothing anyway.
Exactly. It was, but it's just, when you love your job so much, and I felt it was the camaraderie, the team I worked with, I'd been there for 15 years, I loved it, and I just couldn't see that. I just wanted to go and do the job that I loved.
But I see it in many other scenarios where people are in their own businesses or like to be so focused on something in particular because they think that is what needs to happen, or that that's the way it's always been, or whatever it might be. But when you step back from it and realise if it's not actually contributing constructively to the bigger picture, then it's the right call. You just take a step back from it. From that moment forward, you then move towards sort of restructuring, sort of building up the sort of your business overall. What led up to that, and what happened there?
Chaos. Yeah, chaos. Busy, full. Busy. Not focusing on business development, just working on the front end all the time. And I think over the years, I know lots of business owners, and it's a common problem. You're just so busy, focused on getting the next job and just the day-to-day activities, and there's so many of them in business. Nobody didn't realise what I was signing up for when I became a business owner. But there's so much that goes on in a business, and there's even more now. I mean, back then when I first started, it was Yellow Pages, which were great. People used to pick up the Yellow Pages, they used to ring you used to get them a cleaner, easy. Now there's so many things to deal with. So I think, in terms of why I restructured the business, I actually set some time aside and I reflected. And probably in my business journey, that was the first time I did that, in about 2016. So it's a long time, but I'm proud I did it, because things literally changed overnight for me and for the people who work for me as well.
Yeah. Was there particular triggers that made you think about that? And what, when you say the business changed overnight, can you quantify that?
Well, in terms of emotions, the stress that it was causing me. So fundamentally, the business was a strong business, but it tended to always involve me with every aspect of it, even though I had members of staff. So I couldn't let go of the reins at all. And letting go of the reins and trusting the people around. And I always trusted them, but it was just like, I think I just wanted to help too much. And that was a problem. I always wanted to help, but sometimes then you don't help the person who's trying to do the job, because you're always getting involved. So stepping back and empowering my team made all the difference. And it was through need again. It got to the point where something had to give. And I went into work one weekend because I was actually fed up with myself, because I thought, come on, this can be different, Anne. I went into work one weekend and I love stereophonics. So I got the stereophonics playing, I got my board out, and I started thinking about what I could do differently. And I just scoped it out in a very basic framework of how things could be different. And once I saw it on the big one, I've still got the big board now, and it's great for just sort of visualising and getting things out there, out of here and onto there. And I thought, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can outsource. I can get more support there. I don't need to do that. And that was the start of it.
Probably along lines, it was just getting to the point of having no time and seeing the opportunity of time. Yeah, I think the time, as we're speaking now, we're coming out of, we're out of the pandemic. but that also, the pandemic itself, the COVID pandemic, was a key changing point for you as well, where you sort of saw another opportunity that you could sort of expand the business into. What was that?
So I started my commercial cleaning business in 2005 in Northamptonshire, and during the pandemic, I've mentored and supported other cleaning business in the past, and always been asked more and more about how to set up a commercial cleaning business, and that was before the pandemic as well. So I saw that as an opportunity, and as well, the cleaning that we were doing for customers has reduced right down, apart from the NHS, and having that time and space, along with my amazing business partner Catherine, we wrote an online programme on how to set up a commercial cleaning business, and that was really successful during the pandemic. We supported and mentored many businesses, and we loved what we did because we had the time and space.
And with that, so what you're doing, it looks to me like you're effectively writing a guide to help your competition start up in business, which I find interesting. Right up until then, in 2021, then I see what your next step was.
So the next step was to franchise the commercial cleaning opportunity. So at the time when we wrote the course, we weren't necessarily going to progress onto the franchise, but the course turned into a pilot for us, a very successful pilot, and then it led us on to the franchise opportunity in 2021.
Yeah, so I could see the two coming together then. Franchising is interesting to me because I'd always, if somebody was talking to me about, I'm thinking of buying a franchise, I would always say, well, how much, the franchise is going to cost you this. So what does it give you? Does it give you that sort of return? So I've always challenged the franchise. But then I've spoken to a number of people who have run really successful franchises, and I've learned new things about that. So enlighten me here then. So you've created a guide. You started off creating a guide, an online course during the pandemic that you've seen sort of just open the door to franchising. How why did you ultimately follow that journey to where you are now? What's led your train of thought from creating a commercial cleaning business in 2005 to now running a franchise network?
Yeah, I think, sort of the things that we've mentioned during the interview. So in business, since I've been business in Northampton, especially over the last 10 years, I've surrounded myself with a network of motivational, inspirational people, and also other business owners as well. And what was a common thing with what I was hearing from business owners was that there wasn't enough support in the background. They were unsure about business because business is massive, and as much as there's advice out there, you've got to go and find it. And when you're running a business, sometimes it's difficult to get the right sort of business advice, and it depends who it's coming from. So for me, I was really passionate about helping business owners, to support them, to get, to motivate them so they can actually get what they want in life, whatever success means to them. So at the heart of the franchise is training and support. So when you go into something new, like when I started my commercial cleaning business, I was tripping over myself. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have contracts for years. It was just like, oh, I need that. Okay, I'll go and get it. So it was like a learning curve. So for us with the franchise, what's really important is that support and the training and the mentoring. So I'm the mentor for the franchise. I support the franchisees, and it makes that journey so much easier. So yes, it is all about earning money at the end of the day, but it comes back to that work-life balance as well. So whereas I was a chaotic business owner working ridiculous hours in the police, etc., it's about giving people that time back. So what our ethos is, it's about a work-life balance and giving people the right tools and support so they can be confident in their own ability and successful in their own ability going forward.
The key things that I picked out as you was just talking there that we see within UK business forums all the time is the challenges of actually starting up and running a business. There are so many different aspects, and we see it so often where people they start off a business because they want to do a thing, whatever that thing is. So they start doing it, and then before they know it, they've then got cash flow. They've got to deal with tax. They've then got to think, hang on a minute, I've built this thing, I've created this thing, now nobody's buying it, I've got to do the marketing. And what I've seen from franchising, which I'm seeing more and more of, is actually the tools that come with that is it's a user manual. Yeah. It's a user manual for running a business. But what going through, I'm just going to challenge that thought process for a minute. Is there almost like an adrenaline from the not knowing, if you have the sort of everything laid out in front of you, as in the steps to take, or is there a peace and calm that comes with just knowing this is what needs to be done?
I think if you've got a framework, and the thing is that framework, as much as it's a solid framework, you've still got to put your own personality into it. You've still got to put your personal drive into it. So as much as you can give somebody a framework, they've got to go off and do the work. They've got to network, they've got to build relationships, that side of it. But if for instance, what we do is we take care of the social media to start off with for 3 months. So that headache's taken away from you. So while you're starting your business, you don't need to worry about doing your posts, etc. You can then step into that when you're ready. So it's like somebody holding your hand tight at the start, and then gradually you just let them go, and off they go, and they just give you a wave and say, thanks very much, Anne, I'm happy now, I can run my own business. And that's what it's all about. And
with anybody, so if there's somebody sort of going through this journey and starting this business, what are the sort of key things that you'd recommend, or business advice you'd give to somebody who's one of your franchisees? So like 3 key pieces of advice they need to be mindful of, that you can show them the social media, for example, you can help them with that, or some guides on, this, do make sure your invoicing's up to date, or whatever it might be. But actually it's still a business. It actually is their business they need to grow. Coming from that direction, what sort of advice would you give somebody?
Well, for me, it's all about relationship building. So that's absolutely key. So again, with the framework, most of the things are taken care of in the background. So automation, support, social media is scheduled out. But in terms of, it's a bit like dating, right? If you want to find a new partner, okay, you can sit indoors and go onto the digital platforms, but you've got to go out and meet somebody at some point. So for me, it's all about relationships, and that's how my business has grown. So networking is key, interaction is key, and supporting other businesses. It's not one-way traffic, it's about helping other people, and it comes back to you. And that, for me, that's the number one advice I give out to franchisees and other businesses, and it's the advice that was given to me at the start as well.
So a lot of people, particularly in today's digital way of interacting, as you said, you can stay inside, you can do your digital networking, let's say. The thought of face-to-face networking might fill some people with fear. Yeah. Any tips or advice as to how to overcome that, or how to sort of get through your first networking event?
I was absolutely terrified of networking to start off with. I just didn't want to do it for years, and I I was persuaded to go, and I think what we've all got to realise that there's a first time for everything for everybody, and going to a networking event, it can only improve the more you do it. It's a bit like, learning to walk. The first few steps, you'll stumble, you'll fall down. Then you take another step and you feel a bit more confident. Then you go again to the networking, you feel a bit more confident. And everybody has been in that same boat as well. So as much as you look around the room and you think, oh God, they're really confident, they're inside there a bit nervous as well. And I think I used to run a networking group in Northampton, and the reason I did it, I went from literally not networking to being a network leader, because I wanted to help people who were nervous like I was back then. So with that group, we made sure there was a warm welcome, that they were supported, that somebody was there with them for that first time. And that's all it needed. Really simple, but just support those people coming in because they were like you once upon a time. Yeah. Made all the difference.
I'd probably also throw my own bit in there. You don't walk in and just throw your business cards at people.
Never do that. Never do that. If you do that, you're like, oh my God, no. Have a quiet word with the people. But, it's about, and the thing is, don't expect to turn up and it's just you're getting business like that. It's about relationship building. Number one thing, everything else can be done by somebody else, but that relationship building is really, really important to a business.
And I think we'll probably wind back to the perception of networking is it's like a business go round, like give a talk or exchange your business cards is like the norm type of thing, where actually we've all been networking since school. Exactly. It's just building up contacts, getting to know people, finding out a bit about them, and then gradually as you get to know these people, know more about their business, subconsciously you start hearing somebody saying something like, oh, we need to get this place cleaned up. It's that kind of sort of build up from there. You've gone through sort of really interesting career in the police into sort of trying to sort of balance the books in the house and starting a business and sort of going into that journey to now building your business up into a franchise. I suppose, why do you do it?
I love business. I found it really interesting, but it's all the elements to it. And I think if I wasn't having into personal contact or communications or dealing with people, I wouldn't be involved in it at all. For me, that's the number one thing. I love people. I love to hear their stories, their journey. And for me, I get a buzz about supporting people. I get a buzz from showing them there's a different way to work in. I wish I'd done it a lot sooner. I didn't. But hey ho, that's life, We learn these things along the way. And I think the other reason why I do it is because when you're a police officer, you work really, really hard. And sadly, I've lost a few colleagues before they even got to 50 because of, their health and the stress that the work took on them. And for me now, I'm really passionate about showing people how there's a good work-life balance because you're a long time dead.
What I've picked out from this conversation is that actually it's not so much about whatever your business does. You're dare I say, your personality trait, the type of person you are, where sort of wanting to help people, the franchising aspect, the destination you're doing there, it's not about actually delivering the product. You could be selling cameras as we look around the room or chairs that we're sitting on. It feels to me that whatever business you went into, you would eventually found your way into a business, structuring it in such a way that you're not in the product delivery, you're actually going to be guiding people doing whatever it is in that way. So the franchise seems like a natural step for you, which is probably going back to like your experience in your first career in the police force and sort of drifting up from there.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah, you are spot on. And of all the different jobs I've done, and I've done a whole array, and working behind a bar, I mean, I always loved every job I did. You know, I went into it, worked really hard, and I loved the human aspect of it. So yeah, you're spot on, Richard.
And I suppose the last question really is, when you think about the steps you've taken to at the point where you sort of, I'd say you transitioned from having a career in a, you know, working for somebody else, albeit the police, to running your own business. At what point did you become an entrepreneur?
I think I was an entrepreneur way back. When we used to sit around the table and we used to chat about things as a family and come up with ideas. My dad was a wheeler and dealer, more a hoarder than a dealer, I've got to say though. And you know, it was all that going to the auctions and seeing that side of it. So I think it was way back actually. I think it was always in me. Yeah. The police side of it gave me the tools. The transferable tools which you never see or you never think about when you're in the police, but that journey, if it's like a jigsaw, I think, okay, that was then there. We had that enthusiasm for business back at home. Then I went to the police, and then the necessity became really important because there was no money, and the twins were born, and that's when, because I had so much energy and enthusiasm for it, and I needed to do it because of the money, but I loved it, and I still love it today. It's just great.
Okay, so would you feel that within entrepreneurs, that it's always there within them, it just needs that trigger?
I personally do think that's the case. Yeah, I do.
So it's interesting to me. That's my belief.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I do. Yeah, I've never really thought about it before, but I absolutely agree.
Okay. And you just mentioned life's too short. What would you like to be remembered for?
I'd love to be remembered for being fun, supporting people, and being somebody that somebody can rely on, and knowing that I've always got their back. That's what I'd be like to be remembered for.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Anne. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.